Hello and welcome to the Inner Design podcast. Today's guest is my longtime friend and fellow Art Center photographer, Mark Adams, whose work captures something far deeper than an image. Through black and white portraiture, Mark has developed a way of photographing people that feels raw, present, and deeply human. His portraits do not feel posed, they feel revealed. Mark was born and raised in the Pacific Northwest, spent a lot of time in Los Angeles, was where we met for school, and worked before eventually taking a motorcycle road trip across the United States in search of a new place to call home. That journey led him to Cleveland, which I'll have him share all of those details with you. What makes Mark's work so compelling is the simplicity of his approach. He talks with people, he listens, he creates enough presence and comfort for something real to emerge. His photographs carry a quiet intensity that often leads less like being photographed and more like being seen. Just before the pandemic, Mark returned to the Pacific Northwest to help care for his aging parents and spent the lockdown time remodeling his childhood home. And around that same time, a reconnection through a mutual friend led him into what he describes as the healthiest relationship of his life, one rooted in radical honesty, emotional openness, communication, and intentional intimacy. Today, we'll talk about photography as a practice, portraiture as mindfulness, and motorcycles and freedom. I know that you also have some Zen influence, and that is about human connection for you and what it means to truly look at another person without performance or judgment. All of these things I feel so deeply aligned, and I feel so grateful to have you here. Welcome, Mark.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Just trying to get everything all set up here so I'm all symmetrical since that's the ADHD part of me. I'm distracted with easily things. So I know a lot of our creative friends and family have that kind of similar. Can't not see it once you see it. So
Yeah, visual attention, right?
yeah.
So I would love to start with asking you, was there an early moment when you realized that photography was more than documentation, I think? Or is it documentation to you? And was there just, what was the time that you actually realized this is a way of understanding people?
I think early in high school, I took a photo class. Just like a lot of people that start, and may have taken pictures at home, or family may have had a camera, but then you decide to take what you consider to be an easy elective, and then you decide, oh, this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life. So I think that was um, just one of those moments where finding the camera, finding the joy of taking a picture of friends and having them like the pictures of themselves. That was kind of the beginning of it. And in some ways, I kind of moved away from that commercially because I was just doing a lot more product work, and I was doing in studio stuff. Uh, and the portrait work kind of got placed to the side until I got on the motorcycle and went to Cleveland. So um, I was trying to find projects for myself that was something I could relearn to love photography. Because as we all know, when you do something every day commercially, it's uh, sometimes a challenge to remember why you love it, because of all the other factors that aren't necessarily creative, or they're creative in problem solving for someone else, and not why you do it, not why you started doing it.
So many important things you said in there, like creative problem solving, something I definitely talk about as the creative process. I often say that we live in a world that's so outcome and output driven, and it puts us in this state of constant performance and separated from that presence that really brings, creative vitality and livelihood. And I think that, you've said that your portraits focus on, and I've experienced it personally, so I'll say from my side of it, focusing on seeing the real person, their genuine energy. And I don't love to be photographed, but I get photographed often and I get asked for portraiture often and headshots and all of that stuff. But I always was more comfortable, hiding behind the lens and seeing the world. And sometimes it's hard to be seen. And just being, every time you're in LA, I'd just be like, I want to come there and be in the front of your lens because it feels really natural. It feels really comfortable. I'm not aware that I'm being photographed. And yet somehow you're aware enough to know when to click that shutter. Like, walk us through the process a little bit. I mean, I would say it's mindfulness,
Um,
but what is it for
yeah.
you? Yeah.
Well, I think um, early on when I started taking portraits again, it was really just a way to give me something to do. Um, so anyway, to backtrack again, so when I moved to Cleveland, so I took that motorcycle trip because I was looking for some place to move to discover some place that was going to be my next chapter. And I'd lived in LA, I'd lived in the Bay Area, um, and I was looking for something that was different. Very, um, I didn't want that large city grind anymore. I didn't want to be commuting on the road for hours every day, and I wanted something where I would be more connected with the people around me. Um, and somehow I'd come up with this idea to ride Route 66 back to the East Coast, and then I was going to ride the Transamerica Trail. And when I'd first thought of it, I kind of figured, oh, I have to do this many miles a day. And when I got out on the road, I didn't want to do that many miles of the day. I wanted to experience why I was there. The reason I was there was to find someplace else. It wasn't just to get from point A to point B. And when you're on a trip that you're running, like just do what you want, what feels natural to you. And so part of that understanding of why I was on the trip kind of led me to a point where I would do as many miles as I wanted to do. I would stay in a place. And when I say this, it's not like a big thing. It's like if I had a great conversation with somebody that solidified that place for me, then I could move on. And that might be when I got coffee that morning at the coffee shop, or talking to somebody at the campground when I was unpacking the bike, or even just like pulling up on the side of the road. When you're on a motorcycle, you're very accessible to people. And everyone is like, oh, I ride, or somebody in my family rides, or my friend rides, or I've always wanted to ride, and I can see you're on a big trip. Where are you going? Where are you coming from? And so it doesn't have that same barrier that being in a car has. And it just allowed me to talk to anybody on the street, and anybody in the motorcycle community knows that if you see somebody else on a motorcycle and they're traveling, you want to know where they're going. Because you want to live kind of a little vicariously through them. Um, and if you have a problem with your motorcycle, if you get a flat tire, if you break down somewhere, another motorcyclist is going to pull over and stop, and they're going to help you, and you're going to get that sense of community out on the road. Um, and so it kind of reconnected to the part of me that enjoyed just talking to people. And being an introvert, that's always something that's not necessarily the most natural part of it, unless there's a context. And so, um, going through those months on the road alone in my helmet, I generally ride without any music or without any um, distractions in my helmet. So it's just all internal. And I was at a point in my life where I wanted to kind of find the parts of myself that I'd lost over the previous decades, and the parts that um, I had minimized, that were important to me, that I wanted to rediscover. And um, in that process, I had to stop in Cleveland because I was needing to work on a clutch before I head up into Canada. And I just found this great community garage. I'd been following them online because I knew that, oh, if I wanted to stop someplace on the trip and I'd be going through Cleveland, I needed to service the bike, I could rent some space. And when I pulled in there, it was just this really wonderful, amazing experience. And anybody who's lived in the Midwest, honestly, and a lot of the motorcycle community in general, but you pull in and everyone is just welcoming. There's no facade, there's no kind of barriers to talking to you and just meeting you where you're at. And I think that's just an amazing experience to have when you're looking for some place. Like, that's very attractive. Um, so ultimately, I ended up moving to Cleveland. Um, but I needed something to do during, like, they would have like an open house at the community garage, and or there'd be some kind of big event that they would have, and I'd be like, hey, let me just set up and I'll do portraits of people that come. And it gives me an opportunity to meet all these people, to talk with them for a couple minutes, and it's in a context where there's no um, there's no expectation from them of what's going to happen, and there's no kind of limit for what I can ask them because it's our couple of minutes together, and I can ask them about their family or what they're passionate about, and really get a sense of that person. And when I'm talking to them, you just see them light up, and so that really became the moment that I wanted to photograph, and so that's kind of the style that I developed, was just really just talking to the people, asking them about important things, life decisions that they'd made, things that were personal to them. And it just allows that person to forget what we're doing there, to forget that there's a camera in their face. And that energy just really comes through. And so that was the kind of the beginning of the development of what my portraiture, even though it is very simple, it's simple looking, I should say, because um, it's not an easy thing for someone to relax another person in the milliseconds that I have before I start taking pictures. Uh, and also, as you know, like I don't pose people because I don't want them to feel like the way they're represented is something that I've crafted. So I really hate when I see portraits and I can tell that the person's just been overly posed and the energy is out of their face. And when they look at it, they're like, "Oh, the photographer told me to put my hands here, do that." And
Mhm.
that's not what's important to me. It's important that that person looks at that picture and really recognizes themselves. And sometimes that's just simple gestures that they're completely unaware that they're doing. But when you're talking to somebody, that's what comes through. So just and then doing that, year after year, and getting a little bit better and a little bit better, um, developing kind of an openness for myself because when I was on the road by myself, the only person that you're with is yourself. So you need to be honest with yourself. And I know that we're always the first person that we lie to, right? We always say, "Oh, that isn't
Right.
important to me," but it is important to me. Or I know I can't do this, but you can. You're just afraid of it. So just confront why you're feeling that way. Be honest with yourself first. And when you have that openness with yourself, that allows people to see that feeling within you. And then that gives them that space where they can exist with you honestly with themselves as well. So um, that's kind of the foundation of how I've been living lately.
So you're telling us that the way that you see, I mean, I look at your portraiture and I think it really does translate that the person is emotionally unguarded. So they really feel that, they can let their guard down. And part of that, it sounds like from your experience that you're telling us, is that you're going through that process. And so it's maybe you're mirroring it for that. Like people like to say they're holding space, but I think holding space is really just being present still enough. And for me, I'll call that meditative, of course.
Right.
Is
Well, I
there,
think that I think there's so I think all of us want to be known and understood and seen, and whatever term you want to have for having someone else share an experience or time with you without a barrier. Um, and sometimes we
right,
put up those barriers, or they put up those barriers. And when you accept yourself as you are, or without, we can all be overly critical of ourselves. As artists, we're incredibly critical of, oh, this work isn't good enough, or oh, does anybody care to see this?
right.
Um,
Yeah.
but within my work, it's the portraits, they're a collaboration between me being there and the person there having a conversation. And so the pictures are really just a record of those moments. Um, and for me, that really just turns into a very natural um, energy between us where I want to know as much about that person that they want to tell me. And I want to be, it's like weird when you start to use these modern terms of like safe space or whatever. Um, but I just want to have that person have that moment where they can be completely open and not judged and accepted, and have that picture be a record of that. Because the other important part for me is that, we all have good times and bad times. And during bad times, maybe they can look at that picture and they can get a little strength from it. It can be a touchstone of a moment where they were feeling a little bit better or being known by somebody else. And as it's, me, I'm very practical. I'm not a woo woo kind of person at all. I don't believe any of
Yeah.
that. But when I start to talk this way, it comes off a little bit like that. But it is also a very practical, like
Yeah.
analysis of the situation. It's not because as human beings, we like to live within a community. We like to live connected to people. And so if
Right.
I can give them that space to feel comfortable with themselves and record that moment for them, then that's something that they can show to their parents, they can show to their kids, they can show to their grandkids in 20 years, who knows? Um, but I think nobody really knows what another person is going through. And so if I can just be that moment where someone's honestly listening to them without asking for anything. I'm not trying to convince them to do anything. I'm not trying to, I never, if you want to give me a tip or whatever, usually a lot of these events I'm either working for free, or I'm giving back to the community that I'm part of. And I do that in the maker community when I go to the maker camp every year. Um, I'm largely just getting my expenses covered and and not even that, honestly, because if the time is involved when I'm working, 15, 20 hours a day, um, and making like $1 an hour, like there's no economic upside, but the emotional side of it is just this amazing. Um, it's a challenge both physically and mentally to remain that open for every single person. I try every single person from when I start photographing in the morning to late at night, and sometimes I shoot till 1 or 2 in the morning, and I've started at 7 or 8 that morning. So, um, very long days, but I want every person to have the same experience, to have the same level of intention and energy. Um, and it's like there's this moment when you've taken the pictures and you're doing, and they haven't seen them yet, and you're kind of editing, and you pull up the best ones, and then you show them to them, and there's this pause a lot of times where someone kind of is shocked to see themselves, and it's really internally, like, it's very emotional for me because it's like, oh, I've been able to, through my talent and skill and work and whatever it is, give that to that person, that moment of clarity that they can see themselves and feel that pride within themselves. Or even when I find an angle of something that they said, "Oh, I don't like this about myself," but then I make it look really good for them, and then that takes away that negative stigma that they've had for themselves, in some small way. So those moments are the reason why I just
In that kind of a moment, like you're talking about, um, guiding them out of something that they feel maybe self-conscious, is there some what's happening internally for you is kind of like, I'm hearing the process, and is there something that, when you're photographing them, you see them becoming maybe self-conscious, you know that you're guiding them to something deeper, into presence, like, a little bit there. I wanna hear more.
I think, like when, if I'm on my set with my camera and I have, say there's a line of people there, and so some people are self-conscious because there are a lot of people, they don't want to rush. Or if when someone approaches you, or when you're even in the natural world, when someone comes up to you, they're presenting something they think is positive, or they're kind of holding back something that they think is negative. But for me, I need, I have milliseconds to notice these things about what they may not like about themselves, what they may be angling away from, so I'm not seeing it. Maybe they're left eye or right eye dominant. Um, and so all these little micro decisions that I have to make, it's not a judgment. It's simply knowledge. It's simply information. So to them, they may see something as negative and they may see something else as positive. So if they're trying to present only the positives, that's really only presenting part of that person, um, which I can take back to, the lessons I learned from, my marriage that I got divorced from, because I was only presenting the good parts. I wasn't allowing her to help me with the parts I needed help with. I wasn't able to ask for that. And so in the photography sense, if someone's holding something back or they're minimizing something about themselves, I need to have that information because I need to either protect it for them, or I can also use it in a way that can make it a strength for them that they're unaware of. Because for me, I don't know if it's positive or negative, but it's all information. I can see that maybe
Right.
they don't like it, but it's not negative to me because I have no context for it. Somebody may have a scar from when they, fell down when they were 5, or somebody, may have said, "Oh, you've got a little twist in your nose or something." And so someone always sees that now. And I look at all these things and they're just elements. They're not, um, something positive or negative. I don't know why that scar is there. I don't know, maybe the biggest thing is sometimes is when you take a picture of somebody and they look and they're like, "Oh my God, I really look like my parent." And then that can be a really emotional response depending on the weight that they have with that relationship.
Right,
And
right.
sometimes that can be,
Yeah.
really moving for somebody. Um, and so it's amazing. I'm really blessed to be at those moments where someone can see that and have that reconnection with a family member, or some part of their lineage that they've kind of had forgotten with the hustle and bustle. Um, but again, it's not without any, there's no judgment. I'm not. It's not that I don't care, but it's I don't have a negative connotation with somebody, and I try to make, because my job is to make everybody look good and be honest about it. And I think it
Yeah.
starts with the honesty and it ends up with them looking good. So I think if you want to make somebody look good, you're taking away the honesty. But if you're starting with the honesty, because that's the most important part for me, I can make somebody look good because they can see their energy and their real sense of themselves, and not just a nice big highlight and a soft fill and, you know, that kind of thing. Because that's not reality. It can help, and some lighting can be more flattering for some people than others, but when you see a picture and the sparkle is in the eye, the light is secondary to that energy. Um, but it's yeah, so it's again, getting kind of that wooey thing. But when you start from a point that's grounded and honest, and someone can see that in themselves, then they know that I'm being honest with them. And if something's not looking good, I'm not going to tell them it's looking good. I'm not going to lie to them, and they get that sense of trust. Because as soon as
Right,
you lose
right.
that sense of trust, then why are you there?
Wow.
So I don't know if that's more
That's
confusing or if there's any answer
no,
there. Yeah.
that's quite a statement. And is there like a moment maybe that happens during a portrait session where you know that taking that photograph, it's shifted from the surface level that's presenting to something deeper? Is there something that is it
Um,
tangible to you?
I mean, it's more. I'm not going to take a picture that feels false. So if it feels false to me, I'm not pushing the button. So I'm
Mm,
only going to take pictures that feel honest to me. Um,
right.
and it's sometimes it's the moments where you're just they come up, they're not really sure what's going on, and there's the shields haven't come up, they haven't started guarding themselves, they haven't started to like pose. And so sometimes I'll take a couple of quick pictures then, because I know that that's going to be the most honest. And if I can get a really good shot before they've realized it and show them that, then that builds that trust that they know I'm there and I will protect them. So it gives them that other sense of kind of comfort that they can continue to open up. Um, and so it's part of the process is just listening to what, you know, tone of their voice, the way they're holding their body, to see how guarded they are. Because as an introvert, as someone who's shy, who doesn't like, it's not that I don't like my picture taken, but I don't really need it. I don't really think about, oh, I need to look good today. That's not ever a part of my. Um, of course, everyone wants to look good. That's not it, but it's not something where I'm conscious about um, those sorts of things. It's for me, it's more about if I can make an honest connection with somebody. That's a much better memory for me than looking good that day, right? So it's more real.
Yeah.
So when I feel
Do you,
that, that's when I start photographing.
I love that. Do you think that, um I'll say it this way, it's a very inner design way to phrase this question, but like, has presence taught you something more than technique, I guess, is presenting at that moment?
Well, so like one of the biggest moments that I had, um, technique wise. So I'd my entrance into the maker community was um, kind of, I had no intention of becoming a part of the maker community. I had no kind of awareness of it. Um, and so I had been set up to photograph another event. Um, and it was, there were going to be like 200 people come in, and it was just like a creative mornings thing. There was going to be a speaker, and I was like, oh, it'd be a good marketing thing. I'll take pictures. Everybody gets a free headshot. So anybody who came in. So I did that event, and I had left it up in the space because I didn't need to take it down, and they're like, I just leave it up. And like a week later, some people were coming through Skidmark Garage, which was the community garage that I was at, um, and I was just working on my motorcycle. I forget what I was doing, but um, some people came in and they were walking around and they had kind of a cool vibe. And I'm like, oh, let me, go take a picture of them. That'd be kind of cool. So I think I went up, I can't remember if I went back to the files, I could see exactly who was the first maker I ever took a picture of. So maybe I'll do that later. Um, but I was like, hey, let me take your picture. And they were like, what do you mean? Let me take, because most of these people, um, if they're making and they're online and they're either filming themselves or they're showing some process, but they're doing it all themselves. And they're usually working solo in their garage or their shop or their basement. And they're kind of sharing their process. And so they're not really used to being photographed by a professional. And so I said, come upstairs. I've got a little studio set up. You know, I'll shoot a picture. I'll email it to you. Use it however you want. And so we went up there. We took some portraits and, they went downstairs. I emailed them the pictures, and then I went back to working on my motorcycle. I didn't think anything else about it because I wasn't part of that group. Um, and a couple minutes later, there was like a little crowd of them, maybe 4 or 5 people come from. Like, hey, are you that guy that took that picture? And like, hey, could we get one of those too? And so I was like, sure, So we went back upstairs, and I shot some more of them, and then I came back down, and I sent some other one. And then a little bit later, there was more people that had arrived from this group they were having an event at the community garage that you know unconnected to the motorcycle. And so by the end of it, everybody's up there, they're getting their picture taken, and um, it's just a hangout. Everyone's like, having beers and chatting, and they kind of know each other to some extent, or they've known each other online, or they've been spending the week together with this event that was there. Um, and then and they left. I went back to the garage, and I didn't really think much more about it. Um, and then a year later, Lincoln Electric was putting together an event in Cleveland that they were opening up to a larger part of the maker community. It was a ticketed event. There were keynote speakers, there were demonstrations, all that kind of stuff. And they asked me to come back and take pictures. So I set up for 2 days, and um, just anybody who came in and wanted a picture, I would take a picture of it and I would email them the picture, and they started using it for profile pics and that kind of stuff. Um, and I had a normal studio setup. I had, V flats, I had white seamless, I had lights on the background, I had, you know, main light, edge lights, whatever I wanted to do, because it was really unassigned project. I could do whatever I wanted. And so I shot that. And then a couple months, 6 months later, whatever, after that, I was contacted by Patrick Reynolds and Jimmy Drusta and Austin from the Blackthorn Resort, and they were going to put together this maker camp because they had this idea. Because Jimmy is a huge, uh, he's the godfather of the maker movement. Essentially, he's been posting on YouTube for I don't know 20 years now, um, and has inspired so many people to pick up tools to work with plastics and leather. And Jimmy just does whatever he wants, whatever he thinks he wants to do, he just does. And so they said, hey, we're going to try to put this thing. We don't know what it's going to be. We're going to put it together for this weekend. Do you want to come up? And um, on my motorcycle trip, when I was looking to discover different parts of America, I was just, if anything seemed like it was going to be either fun or new, I was just going to say yes. So if I met somebody and they're like, "Oh, you should ride down here," or you want, try, go 200 miles that way. There's this amazing thing. So I was just open to these experiences, and I said, "All right, well, if you cover my expenses and give me a place to stay, I'll come up there." And so I packed my truck up. I had my, I know, a ton of studio stuff, just a ton of stuff. And so I showed up, and they Austin walked me to where they were going to have me set up, and it was a corrugated steel, open sided wooden structure, picnic area next to where they're doing the barbecue with one outlet. So it was basically a
Boy.
wind tunnel with one outlet. Um, and so at that moment, I knew that I was going to leave 95% of the gear in the truck because I couldn't power it. I wasn't safe to put up in a wind tunnel. Um, and so I put up one big umbrella light with a diffusion. I put up a simple drop background. It could have even just been I don't even think it was a 9 foot. It might have even started out being like a 4.5 foot seamless. Um, and I bagged everything, and then I let the seamless loose. I didn't even do a sweep because the wind would blow it, and instead of knocking over the stands or tearing it would just blow, and
Wow.
then it would blow back, and then it would stop, and then I would shoot. Um, and so I only had one outlet to plug in my computer and a strobe. So
My gosh. Challenges.
what are you gonna do with that? So it's like that
Yeah.
it takes away all that extra gear that was the safety net to make everybody look
Yeah.
cool, and it forced me to really focus on why I was there, and that was to take a nice connected picture of each person. So something that could have destroyed my weekend really gave me the gift that I didn't know that I needed. Just to focus on conversation and meeting somebody where they're at emotionally, and then um, most people that come into my set on the maker camp, they're introverts, they're shy, they've never gotten a picture. They might have had a high school portrait, and that was like the last time they had a professional portrait taken. Or they've had a negative experience where it was like a headshot for their company, and it was like, okay, pose, stand like this, and then click, 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 and it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like them. Um, but that limitation of only being able to use one light and a bounce and a seamless, like that really was back to the very, very basics of photography and why it was important, and it really made me focus on why I was there. And nobody knew who I was, because they had seen the black and white pictures from the years before, the 2 years before, but they didn't know who that person was because it wasn't connected to my name or my face or whatever. Um,
Right.
and so it was almost like I was a subway busker where I would go out and I'd be like, "Hey, come here, get your picture taken." They're like, "What do you mean get my picture?" I'm like, "I'm going to take a picture. I'll email it to you." And they're like, "Well, what's it cost?" I'm like, "It's not. It's free. They have me here at the event, and I take a picture of whoever wants." Um, and so it would gradually build. And so over the course of a weekend, and just like dragging people into underneath this steel roof with picnic tables and wind blowing through it, um, and it really became. Uh, it's really one of my favorite weekends of the year. It's an incredible amount of work, obviously for me, and it's really a surprise too because it's become a really special time um, for people to come and hang out with their friends, and sometimes that first year I'd be sitting there and I wouldn't be doing anything for like 20 minutes, a half hour, 40 minutes, um, and then as it grew, I think in 2023 maybe I didn't stop for like 14 hours. It was like I had a line of 20 people the entire day, and then it was the next day, and um, it's incredibly humbling, obviously, to have people respond so enthusiastically. Um, and so we tried to do ways to like minimize, like like use a deli numbered system to like kind of minimize the line because
Reduce the
I don't want
line.
well,
Yeah.
I don't want them to waste time where they could be out making things and just be able to come back and get a picture. Because sometimes you'd be in line and it'd be 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour waiting just to get a picture from me, and I didn't want to be distracting from the rest of their weekend. But it also gave them time to connect with the people in line around them and meet people that they wouldn't have met, or have kind of a forced moment of conversation where if you're making something, you may not have that time to connect with other people. Um, and so it became different things for each person that was in line. And it was it's always it's a different challenge once people have seen the work or have had their picture taken from you, and you want to find something different, and you want to get around their expectations. Like if they've seen the pictures and they want that same picture for themselves, but that's not who they are, and so you kind of have to work with them in a little different way and kind of take that expectation out of their head and just bring them emotionally to be present in that moment, and then they start to see what the process is. It's not one size fits all. It's really just being like you're always a fan of being present and mindful. It's really creating that in someone who wasn't expecting to have that experience. Um,
I love it. I think there's such depth and richness to the whole experience that you just expressed. It sounds like to me, just being in touch with humanity in that kind of a community maybe taught you things that even the art world could not, right? Or would not.
Well, I mean, I think like because I've never cared about anybody's status. Like I don't give a shit if you're rich. I don't give a, if you're famous. I just don't care. If you're a good person, great. That's what I'll respond to. If you're a bad person, again, I'm going to respond to it in a different way. But I'm not going to judge somebody for the life they've lived. I just want to be there at that moment with them, um, and understand why they're there, understand how they got there. Um, and some people, some people focus on external factors, but since we've got that moment, that opportunity, let's focus on the internal and see what that gives them. Um, and when you find that moment and you get that picture that like you start to see somebody like tear up a little bit, like, I mean, I'll talk about something like 5 years later and I start to tear up because I'm right there, right back at that moment when you see that person, um, feel like they've finally been seen after having, um, years of being not seen. Or, one guy, one time he said, like, that's the person I see in the mirror that's the person I want to see, but I never see in my pictures. But you
Wow.
captured that
Yeah.
person. And so like I'm blessed to be in that moment with that person.
I think that's beautiful. From looking at your portraits, I think sometimes they almost feel like there's, modern archetypes of masculinity, yet vulnerability, maybe solitude through rebellion, of course, through the different communities and things. Do you think about themes like this consciously, or it's just, again, coming through as you're present?
Um, I mean, I think, a lot of times, like, so a lot of the portraits I do is either in the motorcycle community, and there's a wide range. Like, there's, anybody under the sun. You've got people that build their own bikes. You've got people that buy, bikes that are, $100,000. It's a huge range of people. Um, and the same thing with the maker community. Like, I don't know anything about these people that they don't tell me. Like, and that I consciously try to not follow. I mean, I follow some people, but I don't really keep track of that information so that when I'm having that conversation, if I know that about that person, I know that I've had a conversation with them that's one on one. It's not like I'm cyber stalking somebody and like I'm following their trip to, Japan or whatever. It's like, okay, maybe they went to Japan, maybe they didn't. I don't know. And then I can honestly be engaged in that. Um, and so the ideas of, you know, masculinity, femininity, strength, weakness, like that doesn't even really come into it necessarily. It's just a person. Every person is an individual. Um, and some people, you know, want to, they want to have like a heroic pose, and we'll do all that. Well, whatever you want to have in that moment, I'm available to take those pictures. But if we also have a moment, let's pause, take a little bit of a step back, have a conversation, see what's going to happen, and then surprise them with something else that is really more connected to who they are and not who they're trying to present, as. Um, and so, it's not my, personality to really, uh, like, yes, that, visually you have all these archetypes of like, oh, men should be shot like this or women should be shot like this or whatever you're trying to, there is a visual language because, it'd be naive to say that I don't have it because I've seen it my entire life. Um,
Mhm.
but I try to give everybody the opportunity to, show whatever they want to show without being too influential on it. Um, and one of the things, like if somebody wants to start with a pose, then we'll start there. But then we'll just move away from that slowly, and they may not even realize that that's where we're going somewhere or another. But it's just allowing it to naturally happen, as opposed, like if I say to somebody, "Oh, I want you to look that way." I don't care that you're looking that way. I don't really care that I'm getting a picture there, but I know you're going to come back here and not be focused on me, and then there's going to be that natural response in the eyes. And
I'm
so,
smiling because I
yeah,
remember I remember
right,
that. Oh my gosh, yes.
yeah. And some people have a great profile, so okay, I'll give you a profile shot, but that's not, that's like more of an aesthetic choice they can have because they made like, oh, I like this, and so I can do that. But it's really when you see someone like really laugh and you're able to catch that, and you see that
Yeah.
sparkle in their eyes, or you see, um, like that's the moment that I'm looking for, and it's not like a specific pose for anybody. Like sometimes I might move into a trend of like, oh, I want to shoot everybody low because for whatever reason, just as a challenge to myself.
Yeah.
And then that will open up a different range of poses. So sometimes I'll be sitting, sometimes I'll be standing, sometimes I'll be laying down, sometimes they'll be laying down. Whatever they want to do, it's not like this formula of like, oh, this person's 6 feet tall. I need to stand here. I need to be 4 feet back, whatever it is. It's really just engaging with that person, talking with them. And you've seen you've seen how I shoot. Like sometimes I'm like right up
Yeah.
on someone's eye, or like I'm way back and I keep moving back and forth all the time. Um, because I don't find any value in like giving 5 versions of the same picture to somebody. It's not interesting to me. It's not interesting to them. So
Yeah.
why not take as many options as you can? Um, and some people are like, "Whoa, that was really close," and then they're like, "Oh, wow, I've never seen that of myself before." And I'm like, "Yeah, this is what I'm giving you these options to see different aspects of yourself because most of us only see the front when we look in the mirror, a camera, whatever it is. We don't know what the rest of us really look like." And sometimes that can be
So
fun to
true.
surprise people too.
Yeah, that's very true. You mentioned Japan, and then I started to think, am I accurate to say I think you lived in Japan or you spent some time in
Yeah, yeah, I
Japan,
spent I spent
right,
some
in the
time there
past?
in high school. I spent a couple summers there and then a year in college with learning language and culture and stuff like that. So,
Did
um,
it change the way you observe people? I think there's a quietness in your work. There's something that reminds me of Zen aesthetics maybe. Do you consciously,
I've
have any
read
of that
like,
culture?
yeah, I read some of it. Obviously at a formative time in like high school when we're kind of all kind of developing things.
Yeah,
Um, but for me, it was always like the interest in Japan was um a lot of it was the aesthetic, and then once that kind of is the gateway in, and then you meet the people, um, and I met amazing, wonderful people, um, and then the aesthetic, obviously, the minimalism of just taking away everything unnecessary to really focus on something that is the most important thing. Like you could have everything is taken away, and you have this tiny, tiny teacup that is just perfect and or it's rustic and it feels natural, but it's not overdone. There's no embellishment to it, but it for whatever reason it's the perfect weight. And when you take away all the distraction, it may really appear simple, but it's taken decades of an artist working to pare away all that chatter in the back of the world to really focus on what they want to present in that one moment and make it perfect. So I think like that is one of the things that's carried through from my time there. Um,
mhm,
But I don't think there's a conscious, there's not like a conscious like checklist of things that I would ascribe to any philosophy or not. Um, it just is really more of finding the simplicity of something and the essence of something. Um, because I think in some ways, all that embellishment is a distraction and it can be beautiful. I'm not saying it's not,
right,
um,
right.
but it's just not me. So, and we've had this discussion before where it's like, you look at your wardrobe and
Yeah,
everything you wear is black. And it's like, well, why is everything black? And it's like, well, for me, it's like it's a some of the reason is since, working in the studios all the time, I don't want to show up in reflections. And I know that if I just reach into a closet and it's 5 in the morning and I got to get out for a sunset shot, anything I grab is going to work together because it's all black. So it's like, I don't have to worry about any kind of color clashes or
yes.
anything like that. So um, and it's just a simplicity thing. And it feels weird sometimes to wear a color like we're wearing this shirt. It's gray, but it has my friend's nonprofit on it. And they have a blue shirt, and every time I put on the blue shirt, my partner is like, I don't. That shirt just looks weird on you because I'm not used to seeing you in color."
That's interesting you said that because I know I bugged you a little bit and, you photograph primarily in black and white, and is there something behind that? Like, what is removing color do for you when you're looking at photographs or translate into what you're trying to communicate?
Um, I mean, I think a lot of it, you know, when I was starting to look at photography, um, a lot of your like your fine art books and things like that, they were all black and white, so they were all classic images, and those were in black and white. Um, and I feel like so this can go also to a larger discussion about how I believe you should learn photography and how you shouldn't learn it. Um, because when you start with black and white, you really have to learn how to craft the shape and the light. And you remember in first term when you're
Yeah,
doing the ball
yeah.
cube cylinder,
The
where you really
fundamentals, absolutely,
right,
yeah.
it gives you the eye to see how things are separating. That can sometimes, if you shoot it in color, the colors are distracting, and it's like, okay, this is just about this orange or this yellow, and it may still have a great impact. It may be an amazing picture, but it may not have the separation that could make it even better. So, because when you
Right,
see how the light comes in and you hit the edge of it and you have a little bit of highlight to shadow, and it really gives you a depth to it. And some people aren't interested in that. They want, like Rothko would be a color field that's very flat, but it's got a lot of
yeah,
subtlety to it. Um, but you know, for the portraits, I think it's good for me as far as like if I'm presenting something, there's no distracting element of someone's wardrobe, or if someone is one picture has someone wearing black and the other person has wearing like purple or patterns or whatever, the patterns will show up, but it doesn't have that kind of, your eye doesn't always pull to the color, so you're seeing
right,
two equally weighted black and whites. um, and I think everybody looks good in black and white. Everybody, you might have a blemish on your skin that goes away in black and white. um, and the way I process my imagery digitally, I have it so that I want it to look like what film would look like for me. Um,
yeah, it
I
does
don't,
very much so.
because I
You
really hate when I see an image and I know it was a color image that they just put a black and white filter on. Because the biggest deficit that I think modern people learning photography now is that they're not forced through the whole process to understand what's going on. So it's like, oh, I'll snap these pictures and I'll put a filter on it. It'll either be color, it'll be black and white, but you're not having to make those choices. Whereas if you're shooting film, which I will never go back to, if you shoot black and white film, you have to make so many different decisions through the whole process. Like, which black and white film do I want? Do I want a little flatter one? Do I want a little more contrast? When I process it, do I want to add contrast? Do I want to pull it back? When I print it, do I want to add these things? And
right,
so you're building each step for a final vision. You're not just snapping a picture and like putting a filter on and be like, oh, that looks cool. Like, you're making all these conscious choices, which more involves you in the process and teaches your eye to see all the subtleties. Um, because that's the other thing. When I'm shooting something, I also come from the commercial world where time is money, and any mistakes you make, you have to pay for on the back end. So if I'm shooting something and I see a little tag come out, it's not like, oh, we'll fix it in post. It's like, oh, just tuck in that tag and we won't have to fix it.
yeah,
Or if there's a
yeah,
wrinkle, hit it with a steamer and that's done. Um, but if you're not used to seeing all those little things that are going to be hindrances down in the post work pipeline, you want to take those out. You want to smooth things out for the client. It's the same kind of thing. You need to see every frame before you take it. And so that's the skill you just keep learning over repetition. Um, One of the podcasts that I've been on a couple times and I listen to pretty religiously is the Full Blast podcast. And it's Jeff Fader, Fader Knives out of New York. He makes kitchen knives and other knives as well. But he comes from a world where he'd done sculpture, and then he'd also done metalwork in a commercial shop where they would have to, like, a great example is like a fence picket, right? So you got a fence and you have 1,000 of these vertical pieces, and it has like a detail, that every detail in your hand making, and it has to be the same. So
right,
you're not spending an hour on each one of these things. You have to be so good that you can make one of these every 3 minutes or whatever the time is. And so you're developing these skills through repetition where you know what feels right and what feels wrong, just physically. And so it's not even a conscious effort of like scanning everything. You just before you shoot, you know something is either right or wrong because you've done it a million times. And so he talks about the process of learning through a production standpoint. Because if you're a fine artist, that's a way different way to engage in a technique than a
Yeah.
production
Yeah.
artist. And I honestly think that if you're going to be a commercial artist, you should be a production artist first because you're going to be much better at your technique because you're forced to do it again and again and again and again. I'm not making one picture of one person. I'm making 1,000 pictures of, 1,000 different people. So it's giving me all those different skills to interact with so many different nuances of personality. Because if I only take pictures of my friend, I'm only taking pictures of people that like me, right? So that's easy.
Right.
But
Right.
if I'm taking pictures always of complete strangers that have no expectations, I have an opportunity every single time to meet somebody fresh and find what, it's the challenge of figuring out that puzzle in milliseconds of like what's going to look good, what they're going to respond to, what they're going to like, how I'm going to surprise them. And that's through experience. But with the black and white, you take out that color element. You focus really on what's that shape of their face, what the detail of their clothes, the way the light is coming across them, what it's highlighting, how it's catching in their eyes. And there's no like, oh, that's a cool shirt they're wearing. Like, okay, I mean, it tells me something about that person because they've chosen that. Or, in the professional world, oh, the stylist has chosen that. Like why does that shirt matter? Like,
Right.
okay, the stylist liked it. Um, which is more a reflection of the stylist than the person, but the person may like it. Um, but yeah, the black and white, I think it simplifies the elements and it really shows you, kind of takes away the unnecessary elements, and it really allows that person's like, and their eyes just like sparkle, or their skin is just, depending on their complexion, like the highlights come across, and it just makes that really feel alive in a way that sometimes color is also. Everyone has their phone where they can take a picture and take a selfie of themselves, and so it's is that special? Is it, and that's there's a there's a show that I really do love watching this show, but there's some things I really hate about it. Um, it's a British show called the Portrait Artist of the Year. Have you ever watched that? Since so many, some of these artists you're using technology to make your life easier, and so they'll take a picture with their phone, and all phone cameras, the lens has that slight bit of distortion. It's like, kind of like a 40 millimeter, 45, like it's just got just a
Yeah.
little bit of that bend, and so when they shoot it close, you get a little bit of that push, and I really hate that. I find it so just it's so narrow in what people are seeing, because when you make that, again, with black and white, you have to make all those decisions. With a camera that has different lenses, you have to make, oh, I'm going to put a 24 on here, I'm going to put a 50 on here, a 70 on here. You know what that lens is speaking with. Like, it's a different language. Each lens has that feeling. And so
True.
if you're
Very true.
just using your phone, it's such a narrow bandwidth. It's like if you only ate Doritos, like that, all I eat, I like Doritos. Well, okay, well, that's all you're going to eat for the rest of your life. It's pretty narrow. Um, and so sometimes when you see the painters, they'll take a picture of the reference, and it's a very limited format. Like, so you only have 4 hours, so you're trying to do things as quickly as possible. Um, and there are some at the end of this, I'm just amazed. In 4 hours, somebody has really created some amazingly beautiful work, and really the the subject is the obviously the first person that they want to connect with that work. Um, but other painters will not use any technology, and they'll simply be engaging with that person, and they'll paint it, and you get, because there's that discussion, and I sometimes have this with a painter friend of mine. A painting, you can, since you're doing it over a long period of time, it, in an ideal world, it'll have kind of a feeling of depth of a person a little bit, that I feel like. And he's like, oh, I don't, photography is a moment. And I'm like, well, in the
Yeah.
perfect world, you can catch as much of that person's personality at one thing. You can't catch everything, but it's the same thing with painting. Like, you can't have it truly be like a film strip or a piece of video.
Yeah.
Um,
I think you're speaking about the what I call the inner design method is like, and I talk about this a lot of times too, is that photography is the most mindful creative expression because
ooh, shots fired to the
in
painting world.
and but here we go, because this is what I feel. Yes, I mean there's presence, but you can leave a painting and come back. And like you're talking about, you can sit there for hours, you can take a photograph of it and then come back and paint and add things, right? I'm not meaning to shoot fire. But at the same time, photography, it's that moment. Yes, maybe it's landscape, but light is changing, wind is changing, there's an opportunity to capture something and it's really in the moment. And that's when I think a lot of people think, oh, I came into the mindfulness expression through, of course, I grew up in a meditative family and it was ingrained in from my culture from very young. But photography, I think, really brought me into the experience of understanding that link that I could access mindfulness through my day, not when I'm just sitting down on the mat meditating for the hour or whatever it is. It was photography because it I would hold my breath actually. I remember, just being little on these big heavy cameras and just kinda like to hold it to make sure I didn't get that shake. I had to hold my breath, I had to modulate my exhale, so I was doing breath work, and that was, like, really my first life experience of applying these meditative techniques, and so I would say that, photography is absolutely the most mindful experience. Yeah, sure, you can modify it when you develop it, when you're printing, you can keep adding, doing things, but in that moment, what you captured, the essence, the full, the actual image, it's not really easy to change later on. And so, yeah,
well, I think so. Like, and a lot of times when I'm talking about photography, I'm only talking about my experience through it because I don't want to generalize other people's experience. Because every one of us, as a creative and artist, whatever you want to call us, um, we have our own recipe for how something is processed. Whether it's, some people are really internal in their work and everything that they do. They may do portraits of people externally, but those portraits are really of themselves. So you have other people that spend a ton of time preparing something, building sets, having this whole other dialogue, and that portrait, that person that they're putting in there, whether they're a model or a friend or a family member, even themselves, they're an element to that and that expression. And so they're trying to say something very personal to themselves. Um, Whereas the work that I'm trying to do, at least in the portraiture, is I'm finding a space, and this is the other thing. And so, like in Maker Camp, I know that I'm going to be working for 12, 14 hours. I know that I have to be in a different mindset to do that. And so I'll go down the road, and there's this place called the Milk Run. Um, and it's a gas station, convenience store, diner combo. Um, and I'll try and get there, early, 6:30, 7 o'clock. The people that are there are it's very rural. So there's a lot of farmers. There's a lot of people that come in there, and that's their social center of the world. Because they're going to be out in the fields, they're going to be at work, whatever they're going to be, but they'll go meet their friends before work, have breakfast, have coffee, get fueled up for the day, get gas, diesel, whatever it is. And so for me, I just like to go there alone, have an omelet, have some coffee, and just listen to everybody and just kind of start being in a mindset where I'm taking everything in and letting that energy pass through me and not creating a boundary and pushing away. And so that's a really important part of my process that I kind of discovered accidentally because when I stay at the place where the event's held, their breakfast doesn't start until like 8:30. Well, I want to be shooting by 8:30, so I need to
right.
eat at 7. And so I just had to find some place local. Um, and it just kind of became the place that there's other places you could go to, but this was the place that I found the most ability just to be anonymous, just like sit at a table, just calmly reset my brain, take all the external energies from that's going through me and just kind of put that in a separate place, get into a mindset where I'm there for the person in front of me. Um, and I just want to hear things then. As soon as that kind of the background noise turns off, I just want to be able to be in that space where it's like, I also say it's kind of like sports photography, right? Like you need to know where the energy is going to go. You need to know where the most interesting element is going to happen in that event, whether it's motorcycle racing or, if it's football, okay, it's probably going to be here. The ball is probably going to go there. Someone's going to come in from here. The light's going to be here. So I need to put myself here to get the highest chance of success. But you have to plan that out way ahead of time. So with a person, you have to kind of know where that energy is going, and you have to kind of know what the
Yeah.
possibilities are, and you have to kind of start to see the signs of how that's developing in the person and be ahead of that. Because if you're not, then you're taking the picture after that moment's happened, not as it's happening. Um, and so that's another lesson that I learned from the listening is I'm much more attuned to the signs of what the energy is happening within that person. Um, and the first couple of years, it was exhausting. I would be worn out for the next week after I finished because I wasn't letting it just pass through me without affecting me. I was like trying to like really engage with it and not so much judgment, but just learning to let it flow, not trying to control where it went. Um, and unnecessarily raise the energy of the moment. Because some photographers you've seen or you've been around, or even you need to try and amp somebody up. But that
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
also, for me, it's kind of a false equation because I'm taking that person somewhere where they didn't want to go or they weren't naturally there. So learning other tools to kind of let them get there. If that's where they're going to go, that's where they're going to go. But that's that would be me assuming that that's where they're going to go, not being in a place where I can support them going wherever they want to go. And sometimes you'll have, I had this a moment, probably 2022 maybe, um, and I was photographing a guy, and we're getting some good pictures and stuff, and I turned the picture or the laptop around so he could see those, and he had a really emotional reaction to seeing himself in those pictures. And really all the emotion from his childhood came forward at that moment. And there was a lot of expression and emotion. And I was present enough to be able to capture that as well. And so that also became a valuable picture for him. It's not one that I post because it's such a private moment, but it is for him.
Right.
Because his dad had been a photographer, and the only pictures he only had like 40 or 50 pictures of his dad from his whole childhood because his dad was always behind the camera.
Yeah, I
And
have that
so
problem too.
yeah. And so he saw these pictures as pictures that his kids would have. And so that
Yeah.
was where the emotional connection came from.
Wow.
Um,
Yes.
and so I didn't know that was going to go there, but I was emotionally present enough to be there for him when it happened and be able to have those pictures to give him so that he could carry that forward too. So sometimes it can go either way. Sometimes it's highs and lows. So you just, and everything I do, I try to do be respectfully and protect that person. Um, and sometimes I won't post pictures until they post it because I know that it may be an emotional moment, and I want to support them in that, and not just be like, "Oh, check out this cool picture I took." It's like, and especially you know introverts who are shy and things like that, and with social media and things. Um, I just want them to be able to show it the way they want to, and sometimes uh, I may choose a slightly different picture because for whatever for whatever reason I may like something just slightly better, but that's more what I like versus what they like. So
Do you think that your ability to photograph so, deeply connected to people, it also, do you think this is part of your willingness to communicate openly in your personal relationships? I know you described, not letting anything go unsaid. And I think,
yeah, no, I
yeah,
think it is. I think because if you want to loop it back into the relationship side of things,
yeah, I would like to hear
and
that.
and the relationship that I have with my partner, um, because we had so it's so like I'd said before, like in my marriage, um, it was something where, and I think it's very common. I think it's absolutely very common. Like you meet somebody and you want to present the best version of yourself, like everything. You want to dress nice, you want to be have some charisma, you want to have a connection with this person. Um, and you want to show them all the best parts, but you don't want to show them any of the bad parts. And so if you lay that foundation, then that person only gets to know the good parts of you. But that doesn't give them what's the most important part in a partnership, where they have the opportunity to support you when you need it. Um, and so I think it's pretty common for people to keep parts of themselves that it may be uh, an emotional wound, it may be some sort of insecurity, um, separate from their relationship with their partner, and that does their partner a disservice, because it doesn't allow their partner the opportunity to be vulnerable in front of them either, or support them when you need it. And so that was a real issue, that I never was able to get around at that point, because it had been so ingrained, and I wasn't aware of the best way to show that vulnerability. And the friction and the damage had just been done for too long. And they're an amazing person. They're a wonderful person. I never want to say anything bad. It was just not suited for the relationship that I needed.
It
Um,
wasn't the time maybe for your growth and your development. I'm
um,
sure you learned
well,
things and
it was a component of my growth now, and so
right.
why I took the things that I didn't like in that relationship, um, and I was able to, especially taking a conscious choice to be single and not be dating anybody, um, until I felt like I had healed the parts of myself that I was not happy with, or the parts that I had minimized, and be able to bring the important parts of myself and be comfortable with myself, so that when I moved forward in my next relationship, that I would be healthy and balanced and honest with myself first, that I could carry that honesty over with my next person. And um, so I consciously wasn't dating anybody in Cleveland, and you show up at a new place, people are like, "Oh, we like you. Oh, you should date my sister. Oh, I've got this cousin. They think you really." I'm
Right.
like, no. I'm like, I don't need any of those distractions, because it's I'm not healthy. I know that I'm not healthy, and I'm not the person I would like to be. So anybody who's going to be attracted to broken me is not going to be a person that's going to, I don't need to be fixed. I need to fix myself and be comfortable with it. But
Yeah.
somebody else can't fix me, just like I can't fix anybody else. So I came to a point where I'm not carrying anybody else's weight. If I'm able to carry the weight that I have, you're able to carry the weight you have. I'm going to support you in finding that strength within yourself. And I'm going to be the best person for me first, which gives me a foundation that I can be honest about everything with the next person. And so I'd come back here, and it'd been a number of years, honestly. Um, and I was working on this house, and I didn't have any time, and it was early pandemic. So everybody was like locked away. Nobody was doing anything. And my friend in Cleveland, she sends me a text. She's like, "I've got a friend that I'd gone to college with in Portland," because she'd come out to here to go to Portland and return to Cleveland. And I was like, I'm busy with this house. I'm not looking for a relationship. I don't need any of that. Um, and so then she texted me a couple days later. She's like, "Hey, really think you should meet." I'm like, "No." And so I put her off for like a month, and she had also been texting this other person the same thing, and both of us are like, "No, we don't really, um, we're not really in that space," and blah blah blah. And then she throws us onto a group text, and she's like, "Look, you two should meet. I'm not going to take no for an answer." And so I'm like, "Okay, well," both of us are like, "Well, she's never going to give up, so we at least need to, have dinner." Um, and so I was like, I'm not really, you know, I'm just, I'm meeting you. Just, I'm going to be open. I'm not really looking for a relationship. I'm busy with this other thing, but she's not going to say no, or if she's not going to let this
Leave you
go
guys
until
alone.
they'll leave us
Yeah.
alone. So at least we need to, meet, have dinner, whatever, and see whatever. And so we met, and it was, like I said, early pandemic. We're wearing masks. We're like 6 feet apart. We're in our backyard, and so it was an opportunity for me to be 100% who I had re-become. And so, for like 6 weeks, we would, I'd meet her at her house, or she'd come over to the house I was remodeling, and then we would just, you know, we'd be like 6 feet apart the whole time, like not because nobody knew at
Right.
that point, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's just an opportunity to meet somebody and to be 100% honest and not try to just impress them, because that was the other thing. I was like, look, if I'm gonna meet somebody, you're gonna know everything about me if you want it or not. Ask me any question. I'm going to answer any question honestly. I'm not going to hide anything because I'm not trying to impress you. If you want to know me, if you want to be known by somebody, then we can just talk. And so we went over all the reasons why, the mistakes I made previously, the parts of myself that I'd minimized, the parts of things that, that she was looking for. And so it was just a great opportunity to really be 100% honest with myself, and then also be, uh, 100% honest with what I saw in her, and what, she would say something and I'd be like, "Hey, I'm hearing this and this and this." And she'd be like, "I don't know that I like being seen that much." And I was like, "Look, we're going to be honest. Like if I hear something in a statement that you made, I'm going to dig into it. I'm not just going to let it go." And at that point I was like, if I think something, I'm going to say something. I'm not going to keep carrying a thought in my head without asking you. So if I hear a tone in someone's voice, or if I hear someone say something, but it puts a question in my head, or if I want to follow up on something, I'm just going to ask. It's not, because oftentimes, you think, "Oh, did I hear that right?" Or, "Oh, is that what that meant?" And then you kind of start thinking about it. And why waste that energy? Just ask. And so ever since, that time of just getting to know her and showing me good and bad equally, like there's no balance of, "Well, I'm only going to show her the good stuff." I'm going to show her both things because that's information. And coming to that in that relationship with such the depth of intimacy that allows within a relationship, has really been astounding. And it's something that we both cherish every day. Um, and it's work. Like, it's definitely, because neither one of us is going to get married. Neither one of us wants to get married. Um, and the way I look at it, and I told this early on when I said, "I don't want to get married." And she's like, "Great. I don't want to get married either." That was even before we were dating. This was just like us telling what we were as people to another
Right, right.
person. And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Look, if I'm in a relationship, I'm going to be in that relationship every day. I'm not going to just have a piece of paper that says I'm married to this person and not put in the work. So I'm going to put in the work from the beginning of the day to the end of the day in small ways, touching it in with her, like being able to, like, say, "Hey, I'm thinking about you," or, "Oh, do you need help with this?" Or like checking in to see how I can support her, or telling her how she can support me, um, complimenting her and supporting our relationship through talking about what's going on within us, um, and not just like waiting till the end of the day until you're having dinner and then, you watch some TV and you go to sleep. Like, that's not a relationship. That's not what I want. I want
Right.
every
Yeah.
opportunity to build another bridge and to create a greater depth in our relationship, because I'm here and I'm present and I'm mindful of what is important to me, and she's important to me, and the relationship that we build. And it's something that you have to consciously work at. You can't ever forget that you need to contribute emotionally to that person's, connection to you. So, and being vulnerable is a huge part of that, and trusting them with that. So,
I love it. I love it. I just see the through lines of you being so present to be seen, to see others, to capture that, through your beautiful talent of photography and the skills, but just like it's a livelihood for you of being seen and seeing others and sharing that with the world. I think it's so precious and so grateful to have this conversation with you, as many conversations we've had together privately, but to be able to share that with other people to see, how you live your life, how you bring that forward in your creative expression. So, where can people find you? I know we'll share all your links and stuff in the show notes, but just tell us where
um,
we can.
yeah, I mean, the most regular one is just on Instagram, Mark Adams Pictures. Um, my commercial websites is Mark Adams Pictures too. Those are the two that I mainly post on. Um, I don't know, and I'm trying to see if there's other outlets that I would find valuable and interesting to put stuff on. But the pictures are obviously the biggest thing.
I'm so grateful you were here to share it, and, it was a great conversation. We might actually have this as 2 episodes, I think, with our natural cut, but we'll have multiple episodes, I think,
All right. Well, I'll
continuing
come
this
back anytime if you
conversation.
need to.
Yes, thank you. Thanks again, Mark. Great to have you.